Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to the Big Serious News. Kia ora, Chewie. How are you?
Kia ora, kia ora, chat. I am doing all right for a Tuesday. Pretty quiet day at work. Said hello to a couple of fans of the show today as well. Hello, if you're watching tonight. Yeah, it's always a bit weird when people find me in the real world. I prefer to think of myself as a Where's Waldo. But yeah, there's a few people in Dunedin that know where I am now. It is very strange.
no.
And I saw my own face on a bumper sticker at traffic lights the other day. Still very, very weird. If you don't know, we're talking about this face on a bumper sticker. It's just weird. It's weird that I'm wearing my own face. And I'm
also wearing your face. Now I think about it.
Oh, there we go. See, it's fashion, darling. I have also been enjoying our what would you call him? What would you call Pat? Our patriarch on his journey
Papa
Papa Patthew on his travels up north. He gleefully posted the Nikki No Boat stickers while on a ferry with engine problems. So that just
here's context for that.
Perfect. Like you knew it was going to go wrong, didn't you?
We're on the Blue Bridge ferry as we speak. It just had announced that we had a problem with the engines, but the engineer sorted it, and now it's safe to go out into the street. Just making me think of all those IREX ferries again, holding the Nikki No Boat sticker.
Beautiful.
And I said,
IREX ferries
reply,
with working engines.
What are you going to do with that sticker there, Pat? Naughty, naughty.
He is on the wrong ferry. He is on the private ferry rather than the...
that's true. That's true.
Oh, well. He's trying.
Yes.
Bless him.
Hey. So he has arrived in Wellington, and he says, I see you, Christopher. Want to come out for a chat? Highly doubt it, but you know, it's always good wishful thinking. But yeah, he did say if he wanted to share his photos of his journey. And he also said that he's actually got the stickers with him. He's taken not only the printer, but stickers with him on his honeymoon. His poor wife.
the man's a romantic. What can we say?
So if you'd like some stickers, because he's got them in his pocket, you can still order them on the store, and you may even get them hand-delivered. You never know who might show up at your door. Yeah, so if you want to support us, you can still buy some stickers. And, yeah, join the Nikki No Boat Buffer Angry Chewie family. Look at this. Look at that. You have one of those on your bumper. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Seem to be holding up pretty well, so good.
It's a good promotion for the quality of our stickers. I like it. All right, today's news. What do you think good old Luxo has reversed on his opinion today?
Yeah, I was spicy about this one today. I think it was yesterday that he was trying to gaslight Chloe Swarbrick when she brought up the fact that his language on potential privatization had softened. And Christopher Luxon said to her in the house that she was in a dark and conspiratorial mood about privatization. And not more than 24 hours later, it is now, well, we might campaign on privatization next election.
Yeah, and she called him out in October last year as well, saying, "Are you following the Tories' playbook in, defunding or underfunding our public services?" and then showing how shitty they look and how shittily they work, and then pave the way for privatization and get people on board for the idea. And he said the same thing then. You got your little conspiracy hat on there, Chloe, which is very...
Isn't that funny? Whenever you point at them and you point out something incredibly obvious, like it's something they've tried before. It's something that the Tories in the UK did, and of course, Tories and National have incredibly close ties. They did it there. And then when it looks like they're doing the same thing here and people notice, they go, no, you're crazy. You crazy lefties. You're always going on about this. And it's like, motherfucker, we're always going on about it because you're always trying to do it. And we haven't forgotten what happens. We pay more for worse services. And that's what it is.
Yep.
Like, and then 10, 15 years down the track, we end up having to buy those services back, and then the cycle repeats. Only this time, it seems like you're very, very clearly looking at the Ministry of Health, which I think everybody is super nervous about. So if you want to make it an election issue, I urge you to, because you will fucking lose.
Especially if they make it about health.
On you.
Yeah, that too. That's part of the story as well. But I think the thing with health, if they go with privatization of health, I think because we've got the example of America, that is very, very risky. Because, good old Mangione made himself sort of public news, worldwide news, and it's not unknown to everyone that the American health system is so broken beyond imagination. So if we can paint the picture of that's what privatization looks like in our healthcare system, or that's the road we're going down towards the American pathway, then hopefully that will make people a little bit more nervous about voting for them. Who knows?
I mean, the American example is obviously an extreme one. You can look at the midpoint, which is the NHS in England, which was the gold standard for social healthcare. Like that was what it is. And the Tories there have been in power so long, and when Labour was in power over there, they were just basically Tory light. The enshittification of the NHS began, and suddenly you've got wait lists and you've got quotas and people aren't getting as good service. And when you're not getting good service and you're stuck on a wait list and you end up being shuffled off to private anyway, then people start to go, well, am I getting good value for my taxes? And then someone comes in and goes, no, you're not getting good value for your taxes. The government shouldn't be in charge of healthcare. They never do it right. So we might as well sell it. And then when you've got no other option, guess what? Someone's extracting profit out of sick people. And then we all need a Luigi to come along and sort of put his thumb on the scale. Speaking of Luigi, have you noticed how he's disappeared out of the headlines? You noticed that? Not the memes.
But yes.
You still see the memes about Luigi, but the news stories with his picture have disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
They're using
until he
stock
comes back
photos.
with his court case.
Yeah, because I think the news media in the US got a hell of a fright when people went, yeah, we get it. Also, he's really good looking. He's fucking hot, and he's taking out healthcare insurance CEOs. Yeah, we're for it. Robin Hood. Let's all get guns. And the news just fucking got, oh shit, what have we done? Get him out. Yeah. Like actually editorial staff were telling reporters not to use photos of him. And that sort of thing, because they realized they fucked up real bad.
I don't think anyone suspected that, but it's certainly one of those things that everyone sympathized with him, which yeah. All right, well, let's throw up yelled. No, carry on. What were we gonna say?
I was just gonna say my favorite thing about that healthcare CEO is I remember a short interview with the CEO's wife. Who was basically, her whole attitude was like, well, I'm sad my husband's gone, but I get it.
Oh wow, I haven't seen that.
It was really weird. I'd have to hunt it out. But and I'm very much paraphrasing, but she didn't seem too bummed. So grim.
That says a lot, doesn't it? Or
Yep.
she was just probably in shock. I don't know. That'd be interesting to see what her psyche was like after that. Right, back to New Zealand then, shall we? Let's have a look at what Chloe said back in October, and then through to what Winston says, because he is very well known for being anti-privatization, which is one of the things where I go, Winston, you're constantly doing this to me. Do I like you?
Yep.
Do I not? What are you going to be,
Yep.
our savior or our downfall? So let's see what the older
election conversation.
Quite a different answer than he gave Chloe Swarbrick last year.
Are the government's choices to underfund critical infrastructure like our hospitals, our schools and our ferries essentially just setting them up to fail to pave the way for an eventual sell-off of these crucial assets that we all own?
The member's in a very dark and conspiratorial
Oh, is
mood
that from
today.
last
Pretty
year?
bloody
Okay.
ludicrous that in October of last year, just a few months ago, the Prime Minister and his offsiders were all laughing at me, calling me a conspiracy theorist for raising the idea of privatisation. Yet now they're being pretty explicit that that's exactly what they intended to do.
Asset sales have been controversial. A majority voted against them in a 2013 citizens-initiated referendum, but John Key pushed forward and went on to win the next election.
Is a mandate from the public an election result, or would you take that to a referendum, any asset sales?
No, an election result would be obviously a mandate for us to move forward with the program of work that we want to move forward with.
But watching on is one man who may stand in the way.
Give me a break.
Would there any...
I've spent my whole career ensuring that our assets stay in our possession.
I think the public appetite is for better infrastructure, better roads, better pipes, better pumping stations, more homes for
Correct.
the next generation. And if we can use the 570 billion worth of stuff the government owns to get a better deal on that stuff, I think they'll go for it.
David Seymour has pitched for the
Isn't it interesting that we're already seeing three very different positions in one coalition? Is that normal? Have we seen that when it's a left coalition?
Any of this normal? No, it's not normal. It's
It looks like infighting.
something as important as asset sales. And this is what we're talking about when the right will just fucking do it. Like national, like, yeah, an election result is a mandate. We'll just do what we want if we win. There is no way. This is the criticism that we had of Labour, is that they had almost an absolute fucking majority, and then they did it. They fiddled on the edges. They had no clear vision when we know that there's people that don't know what needs to be done. Here is your lesson, future left coalition. National's okay with it if you win an election, full speed ahead. Fully automated luxury socialism, go. Wealth tax, go. Hospital rebuilds, go. A massive project of building social housing to crash the housing market, but everybody's got a house now. That's what winning an election means. Luxon just told you, don't forget it. You win an election, you've got a mandate to implement your wildest dreams. Don't stop. Don't pause. Don't speak to the press. Just fucking do it. That's what they're setting. But yes, exactly as you said, we're back in the position where Luxon's stuck in the middle going, yeah, we might win an election. David Seymour's selling off the silverware, and Winston, on the back of a horse, is sweeping away with the country's silverware just so Seymour can't sell it. It's fucking weird.
Mm.
It's
Doesn't look good, does
super
it?
weird. But yeah, it is concerning. Like if they're going to campaign on it, as I said, I hope they campaign on it. I hope they campaign on it, and I hope they get their asses handed to them. If you put our healthcare on the chopping block, you will lose. 100%.
I hope so. Well, the next part of this is they're talking about what things Kiwis have said, because we love a poll. They don't want the government to sell off, and it's already in your picture.
the government to consider a privatisation of the inter-islander ferries, but 3 News can reveal the public wants them to remain public, with a new Talbot Mills poll showing 54% support publicly owned rail-enabled ferries, while 11% want publicly owned ferries that are not rail-enabled, 12% want partially privatised ferries that aren't rail-enabled, while 23% are unsure. The total supporting publicly owned ferries a clear majority, 65%, up 7 percentage points from when that question was asked in October 2024.
Well, I hope I already know that. Of course I've already known that.
It also says that...
It's one of the reasons why, when railways was privatised, we got it back in public ownership, because they collapsed the whole industry and better save it.
Do you have the personal popularity to be able to sell asset sales to the electorate?
Again, I just say to you, that's not a topic of conversation right now.
Let the battle of coalition ideologies begin.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting that he says about KiwiRail, because isn't exactly what happened in the UK as well? They sold off all their rail network and it just tanked it.
Oh, hilariously so. Because when they sold off their rail network, all of European, I think it was European retirement funds bought it
Oh.
and put the prices up. So I mean, that was like, if governments cannot see the value of the things that they own, someone else is going to see it. And it's very clear that it's not going to be a New Zealand-based entity that decides it wants to buy the Inter-Islander. And they're aware of the language of privatization. They want to avoid it being called privatization at all cost. Public-private partnerships. Yeah, they know this. Throughout the 90s, this has been burned into people's heads that it was bad. We sold off KiwiRail to a Canadian company called Toll. We had to buy it back off them because they just extracted value and just ran everything down. You know, it's asset stripping is probably more to the point. But we don't call it that now because that's very scary. So we're just going to call it a public-private partnership. The public part of it is we have the stuff. The private thing is a big company from overseas coming in to extract value. They don't come in to reinvigorate. They don't come in to improve things, because that means you're spending money. They don't do it to spend money. They do it to make money. And I think innately everybody understands that. I look at that survey about what people want from their ferries, and I despair, because 23% of people saying that they didn't want rail-enabled ferries, or 25% of people don't want rail-enabled ferries. Those people should never be asked a question again. Like this is like 54% of people publicly owned rail-enabled ferries. That is the correct answer. 11% publicly owned ferries, but we want to hobble them by making sure that they don't take trains for some reason.
Yeah,
show me
it's
your
a
working.
strange number of questions, isn't it? I feel like they omitted one that had such a small result, which maybe was partially privatized. Rail enabled?
Just it should be fully privatized, I think, is the one that is missing here that nobody wanted. Yeah, 12% partially privatized ferries that are not rail enabled. Like, that's the worst of every option. And 23% are unsure that New Zealand is made up of a series of islands. I think is that. Like, I just drive it. It's just weird. Like, and I think part of this is, again, Labour maybe didn't do a great job of explaining the massive win that they got with IREX. Like, we didn't see we have scored the deal of all deals. Everybody says it's a great deal. These things are going to be great for 30 years. We have checked every box. We've spoken to everyone. We've workshopped the ass out of this. This is the perfect custom-made ferry for the next 30, 40 years in New Zealand. We are the party of infrastructure. It belongs to you, New Zealand. And the media certainly wasn't helping them out there at all, because the media is always the adversary. And, maybe they should be. But also, they just kept on echoing national talking points around it. The mega ferries, the gold-plated ferries, the Ferraris, all of that sort of stuff, which was absolute nonsense. They should have been able to look through that. There should have been someone in the media to go, National says that these are Ferraris. National says that they're gold-plated. We've compared other ferries from around the world. You know, and look, what we've come up with is they're fucking perfect. You know, that's what I would have liked. But that opportunity has been squandered. We don't know where things are going. And National is again kicking the can down the line because they cancelled them without any plan in place. And remember, I think it was Nikki Noboats that said there would be another announcement in March. Her announcement of an announcement at the end of last year was that there would be an announcement about the ferries in March. So that is rapidly approaching. Rapidly. So, yeah.
I do wonder if our news media is not very good at doing enough analysis and too much just relaying what other people have said, if that makes sense. He said, she said type thing, as opposed to National have said this, here's what the data says. I mean, they do a bit of that where it's like, well, then this expert disagrees, but then this politician says this, and it's, but I don't know if they do enough in the middle of actually saying, here's the facts and the data, here's the analysis, and here's the reality of the situation, even if that reality of the situation favors one party or the other in, you know, what they've done. Do you think they do a good enough job of that, or are they...
I don't think they do a good job of it, and I think it's only going to get worse because we are in a news desert now. That analysis, you know, look, the news media has always got to deal with a deadline, right? You know, we've had, you know, the government has put out this statement, and we've gone to the opposition to see what they think about it, and oh shit, there's an hour left in the day before I need to tape this or get it out there. And it ends up being, we've spoken to 3 people and here are their views, and we're not going to give you any context on this. You know, we don't have the news shows that would do that. We don't have competing news organizations really at all. You know, there's a few people doing some very, very good work. But like in the example of what we're talking about, has there been a deep dive into the IREX project and the cancellation of the IREX project? Has anyone held Nicola's feet to the fire and gone, you cancelled this? Did you have a plan? Why was it cancelled? Really? Really? Is that the truth? Like when you said that there was a secondhand Corolla out there, did you know that there was? Did you ask anybody? Did someone tell you? You know, these are the things that I would like to know. It's all too late. And I honestly think that we're not going to have an answer on the ferries by the election, which is again a gift. It's a horrible, horrible gift because it is a critical piece of national infrastructure. But it is something that I will not let go, and it is something that rightly this government should hang for. Like it's part of the state highway network. It's like letting the only bridge into town crumble because you don't want to spend the money on building a new bridge. It's bizarre. Yeah, Ashburton. Apparently, I have heard Ashburton is getting a second bridge. Yay, Ashburton!
Yes. Guess who's paying for it?
Public-private partnership.
The government. No,
not the
government. The council themselves.
Okay. Oh,
no, it was a
Ashburton's
50-50
rates bill.
I think it was. We'll do the bridge, but you have to do all of the infrastructure and everything in the roads around it. So basically, we'll do them in the middle, and you do everything else. So it's going to cost them, Ashburton ratepayers, not sure what they're under, but yeah, it's going to cost them. Ashburton District, I think it's technically.
Yeah,
it
is.
Which is
I
but
have
they
a mate
desperately
that works for
need
the
a new
council.
bridge.
Yeah, you're 100% right, by the way. I had a big chat to my mate who works in the council, and he was like, yep, this is how it's working. It kind of makes sense, but it's kind of like, come on. Come on.
So it'll be like rubble for ages, and this beautiful bridge, and then rubble for ages because
Just a gravel road.
Yeah. Or the bridge will be like perfect, but whatever's on top is just gravel and dirt, just kicks up the dust. Oh no. Well, I look forward to using it at least. Whenever that happens, 10 years from now, we'll see. All right, so we get some super chats out of the way. I like this one from KiwiBurb for $2. Pat is off to stick it to the man. Stickers. I like it. Thank you, citizen. I liked it. Says a goal, $5. Buyback? No. Nationalize any public asset. These frackers sell off.
Yeah, and look, I think Labor put out a meme. God, I hate that. Not a press release, a meme on their Facebook page, saying that they would reverse anything that National does to do with the health sector. And look, it's good to hear that, but I dread the point where we get into just governments reversing everything that the previous government has done. I want some sane people to come along and go, okay, we can bitch and fight and argue at each other on various things, but can we at least get an agreement of this critical infrastructure that we can't bitch about? Like, fundamentally, we need to build hospitals, bridges, roads, ferries, all of that sort of stuff, and we need to have at least a vague idea of how we're going to do it together. And I like it's so dysfunctional at the moment that that's not happening.
Yeah, I think my partner and I were talking about how do you solidify plans in things like the education sector, where once the plan is made, and it has to be via bipartisan support, whatever it is, how do you solidify it for long enough that it doesn't disrupt just about every generation that goes through, or even like, something changes when you go from year 1 to year 6, then you got a new change when you go from year 6 to 7 or 8, 9, 10. And then suddenly you're in a completely new NCEA system that nothing kind of worked before. And that's kind of what we're seeing now, is that it's not moving with them and changes are sort of coming up behind them. It's like the changes are being made in the middle of their schooling system, or career, what do you call it? And it's screwing them over. So how do you find the middle ground and get the other party on board, find a middle ground of what you agree on, solidify it, but not stake in the ground and not be able to move forward with new ideas and as things change. So, but if it's every 3 years for a new election or a new government that comes through, 6 years,
it's almost like you would have to have some sort of agreement of like, okay, anything we get started during our term, and we lose, you can't touch it for another term. Okay. And then if it's still a problem in your second term, sure. Like if you get a second term. I don't know if that works. I just feel like we should just go into Parliament and start knocking heads together and go, can you guys just fucking work it out? This is what we pay taxes for.
Well, this is what MMP was supposed to fix, right? A better system than the two-party system, but even that's flawed, unfortunately. So, yeah. Was there any other super chats? I do like this one, $2. Super sticker. I'm sure it was beautiful.
Oh, it was one of those weird, like the super stickers are always like they don't show up when we repeat them, but we see it in the YouTube, and it's always something like an avocado with a sweatband hugging a banana, and it's like, yeah, that's worth $2. That's definitely a $2 sticker.
We'll do one more. Luxon's biggest mistake: asset sales, health services sales, election year, chippy dynamic today. Yes, I did see him. He was call him out. There was a whole back and forth of Luxon calling Labour the party of no, and he's growth within like a 5-minute span. And Labour hit back with, well, you're the one who said no to the hospital, no to ferries. So
and where's the growth? The only growth we're seeing is unemployment,
Mhm.
New Zealanders leaving the country,
Mhm.
and debt. That's the growth. And all they've come up to say, hey, look, we've unlocked the true potential of growth, is letting people open up their laptop when they're on holiday here. It's bizarre.
They drive up all the rent prices and Airbnb prices. they
That
can
story
afford
about
it.
Spain was really interesting. I don't think
Yes.
that'll be a problem here, to be perfectly honest.
No.
But it was certainly an interesting case study.
Yes, and the same thing has happened in, I think it's Puerto Rico, also has a similar issue where they have seen their housing prices absolutely skyrocket and rental prices skyrocket because you've got this influx of digital nomads and people from the US sort of dodging taxes and things and paying the high prices in the US for their tech work when they don't need to, when they can just work in Puerto Rico. And there's quite a few sort of Central American countries that have had to deal with that, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't think that will be so much a problem here, but I definitely could see it having some consequences. I don't know. I still think it's a bit of a non-issue. We kind of have to wait to see what happens because I feel like people just do it anyway. So, and it's still only 90 days. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can do the hopping back and forth, but who's realistically going to do that? And also, you'd
Yeah,
find somewhere to
exactly.
live for 90 days, which is bloody hard to do anyway and expensive. So you're really talking
It's
about
a
people
problem
have
need solving. That's what it comes
Yeah.
down to. It's like
get away
we
with-
talked a little bit about like the case of streamers and that sort of thing. I've thought about it more. Like if a streamer is coming here to film content for their channel or for their platform or that sort of thing, then they need to be on an entertainer's visa, the same as a musician would be.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very straightforward thing. I saw people arguing the point of iShow Speed would have benefited from this. It's not the same. It's absolutely not the same. He's a performer. Easy. I solved it.
All right. Shall we jump into number 2? I originally had planned Winston's little spat with the Kiribati president. Is it? I
yes.
want to say prime minister, but he's president. But he's also in the news for, well, not really in the news. He's at the tail end of this news story. And something I actually wanted to touch on as well was something. Check it on the screen. There's been a bit of a genocide
yes.
hotline flyer that has been floating around from a pro-Palestinian group, which has caused some controversy. And I'd like to get your take on this one. So we'll have a read.
Yeah,
listen
absolutely.
through.
Palestinian activist John Minto has launched a hotline for New Zealanders to dob in Israeli soldiers here on holiday. The move is being described as racist and likely to incite violence against Jews and Israelis, who the Jewish Council says are already facing increased discrimination in New Zealand. Senior reporter Juliet Speedy has the story.
The New Zealand government is on a crusade to attract tourists to New Zealand to help our economy. And now a highly controversial campaign has been launched over Israeli soldiers, being among those welcomed here.
It's a well-known thing, young Israelis coming here after they've done their military service. At any one time, there'll be several hundred here.
Minto says government inaction has forced his pro-Palestine group to take it on themselves.
It's a campaign to tell Israeli soldiers who have come to New Zealand for rest and recreation from the genocide in Gaza that they're not welcome here. And this is a role our government should be taking. We should have suspended these visas a long time ago.
I was disgusted and very concerned for Israelis in the country and our Jewish community beyond that.
The campaign involves a hotline for Kiwis to dob in any Israeli soldiers visiting, and Minto says they'll then take the matter on themselves.
We will get in touch with them, either through social media or directly at their accommodation, and say to them, explain to them why they're not welcome here.
It crosses a line into, in my view, incitement to violence. It's vigilante justice. It's encouraging people to take action themselves, and essentially means harassing Israelis because of their nationality.
The Jewish Council argues Minto.
Would you agree with that?
Not exactly. It's not because of their nationality. It's because of the actions of the government of their country. Look, I think this is one of those examples where everyone here is shitty. The New Zealand Jewish Council is a Zionist organization. They are heavily pro the actions of the Israeli government here. They are countered by other Jewish groups here in New Zealand that very much disagree with the fact that the New Zealand Jewish Council is always the group that people go to for comment. And they don't seem to point out how pro-Zionist they are. And when it comes to what John Minto has done here, as soon as I saw it, I was immediately uncomfortable. Like, I think it's wrong. Okay. I think the government should be stopping people from Israel coming into New Zealand if they are part of the IDF. I think that is an easy line in the sand to draw. The International Criminal Court has said that Israel's doing real big war crimes, and there are an enormous amount of people that have served in the IDF or are currently serving in the IDF. This has been going on for 2 years. So people will, they'll be going on holiday and carry on as usual as Gaza's bombed flat and tens of thousands of people are dead, mostly children. This is unacceptable. Usually when you come into a country, you have to tick a box that says, are you part of a terrorist organization or have you committed genocide? And I think that is a very clear thing, that if you are from Israel and you have served in the IDF in the last 2 years, yes, you have been doing a genocide. You do not get to go to Fiordland. You do not get a cheese roll. You can't buy a bag of pineapple lumps. Pack your bag, fuck off home. That is fine. This, what John Minto is doing here, reeks of vigilantism, reeks of it. And it just gives me a really yucky feeling in my tummy of somebody hearing someone speaking Hebrew and just going off, or people being harassed while they're in here. It is not our role to police people coming into this country. It's our government. It's immigration's job, and we should be telling the government that, hey, look, we need to be enforcing this, like it was discussed whether Australia was doing the same. I'm not sure if they are, but they fucking should be. But yeah, John Minto here, I think, is wrong. I get where he's coming from. I honestly do, but he's wrong.
Shall we quickly run through this week?
Nationality.
The Jewish Council argues Minto's language does not target Israel's government, leaders or policies. It targets individuals based on their nationality, noting military service is mandatory for most Israeli citizens. Politicians also outraged.
It's absolutely disgraceful. I absolutely deplore what he's doing.
It's racist, fascist, it's illegal, but typical of Minto's 5-decade diatribe against the national interest.
The Human Rights Commission has called for the immediate stop to the campaign and say they've already received more than 90 complaints about it. Commissioner Stephen Rainbow says the campaign may not be unlawful, but he does see it as potentially harmful to Israelis and Jews in this country. But Minto rebukes the idea he is inciting violence and believes this campaign will save Palestinian lives.
Any condemnation of Jewish people, any discrimination against Jews is absolutely abhorrent, and we are very firm about that. We oppose all forms of racism.
Some of the responses make it clear that they interpret his post as a call for violence. There are comments like, do you want them dead or alive? Is there a bounty? Something about caging animals. The interpretation of his followers is that this is about intimidation and violence.
Rising global tensions.
Yeah, so I'm conflicted about it, to be honest. I understand, I'm the same. I understand why he's done it. I understand the motive behind it. I agree that it definitely should come from from immigration. It should come from the top, not from vigilantism. And I can totally see why it's pulled some pretty awful people out of the woodworks who would say awful things in comments, because that's what people do when they're anonymous. But I guess the thing that stood out for me for that was the idea that it's the conscription part of it, right? Because it is compulsory. And there are people in Israel who are currently fighting who do not agree with it, but there are some who also don't agree with it, and you get jailed for not participating. So do you target someone who is just doing what their government is telling them to do, or do you target the government that is causing the genocide? Who's really the person who we should target here? Or should we just not let them in the first place as a bit of a, hey, Israel, we're not going to support this, which means we're not going to support your people, as opposed to letting them through the doors and then yelling at them until they go away. I don't know. It's
on the conscription
it's an awkward
issue.
situation.
On the conscription issue, yes, like all Israeli citizens have to register for conscription. They do compulsory military training. They have their tours that they do, and in fact, Jewish people from other countries can join the IDF as well. So there's a lot of Brits, Frenchmen, Americans especially serving in the IDF as well, as part of their sort of right of return or right of citizenship. They do that. I think if I was personally in that position, if I was an Israeli citizen that was called up to serve as part of conscription, and the choice is you've got to serve in the IDF or you go to jail, you look at what's going on and you make a moral decision. My moral decision was put me in jail. Fuck that, I'm not doing that. I put something out on my social medias the other day. It was a video of just how utterly destroyed Gaza is. It looked like Berlin in 1946. Just absolutely flattened. And I think the comment that I put on that was, if you're an Israeli who's not actively fighting your government at this point, then you're complicit. And I think that is kind of what John Minto is trying to get across. Like, you don't get to do a genocide, go, it's my government that made me do it anyway. I want to go on holiday now with zero consequence. Like, in my mind, is Israel in its current form as a pariah state. They've come to a ceasefire. They've immediately gone into military operations in the West Bank. Like, they do not give a fuck what the rest of the world thinks. And that's from a governmental point of view. Maybe the only way for Israelis to realize what people's feelings are is when they go out into the world and they have interactions with people going, hey, your country's kind of shitty, right? But then we run into the issue of the history of the Jewish people. And what is it? Today's the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Just to underline a point. And that's where we all get really, really uncomfortable about someone urging people to track down Jews. That should make us uncomfortable. That is a dangerous, slippery slope to go through. This is not a question of Jewish people. This is a question of Zionism and the action of Benjamin Netanyahu's government and the people that have sort of gone, yep, something bad happened, and our reaction is 10,000 times worse. And we have ignored everything. We have ignored the international community because we've got Big Brother backing us up with arms shipments, and everyone is too embarrassed to call us on our murderous intent here because of what happened in the 30s and 40s. Those two things are separate. Once again, Minto is completely wrong here. But our government has been soft on this from the get-go. We haven't done enough for Palestinians. We haven't done, like, the comparison between what we did for Ukrainian families during the early days of the Ukrainian invasion and what we did for Palestinian family members is shameful. Our lack of action towards the Israeli government has been shameful. Like we've sort of wrung our hands, and occasionally, again, Winston rides in on his horse and goes, "Yep, it's really clearly a genocide." The international community has said that it's illegal, but then this time he has a chance to say some things like I have, of going, "Well, I get where you're coming from, but it's wrong to do it this way." He didn't take it. He just took a swing at John Minto because he doesn't like him.
And then
But yes.
Seymour bandwagons in because he hears the word racism and he goes, "Oh, two people, oh, racism, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
He loves
Now,
it.
now remember, David Seymour hates apartheid. Loves Israel. Hates apartheid, loves Israel. Can hold both of those thoughts in his head at the same time and not explode or break down right down the middle. Makes no sense. So anytime he talks about apartheid, clearly doesn't understand what he's talking about. Every time he talks about a state having different rules for people of different like whakapapa, think about what he said about Israel. Doesn't work. He's a hypocrite.
Really? You don't say.
Massive hypocrite.
I wanted just to read this out because it gives some interesting thoughts to mull on. Not saying I have a side on this, but I think it's quite interesting to think about. So they're talking about the effects of people that serve in the IDF. So I think this is a Sydney researcher who's doing some deep dives into this stuff. So we have now in the IDF many soldiers who are religious soldiers, many of whom leave their homes within settlements in the West Bank, and they are very clear right-wing nationalistic ideology, Dr. Gold says. They can be more immune against these traumatic impacts compared to other soldiers in the same unit who come from a left-wing home. When these people see 100,000 refugees in Gaza and have to shoot into them or fight or destroy their homes and so on, it creates such a moral, conscientious conflict, a foundation for post-traumatic sensation. Mayros is a senior lecturer in peace and conflict studies in the University of Sydney who served in the IDF in the 1980s. He lived in kibbutz, a small township where people live and work together. Those who live in kibbutz have traditionally opposed the expansion of Jewish settlements in the West Bank. Most people living on kibbutzim are on the left side of political maps, says Dr. Mayers, but he says he was told that if left-wing Israelis refused to serve in the IDF, then it would be dominated by right-wing Israelis. That's a recipe for even worse human rights violations. So that's why we should swallow the pill and serve, he says. I remember that as a big incentive on the kibbutzim, we should serve and try to avoid worse situations. And the other bit... the IDF has called on 360,000 reservists to fight. Meanwhile, there is a small group of Israelis known as refuseniks who are refusing to serve and facing jail time. So some food for thought there.
It's an interesting position, but I don't. Yeah, I do get where he's coming from there. You know, if we aren't there calling out the truly evil shit, then who will? Well, we're not really seeing anybody calling out some evil shit, right? We've had, I mean, there's been some incidents of, what was it? I think it was a military police unit or something had a scuffle with IDF forces when they came to liberate a prisoner of war camp after reports of torture. And there was literally an armed standoff between two factions in the Israeli military. One who wanted to follow the rules of law and the one that didn't. But that was fully like 8 months ago. That was the only thing that I have seen. We haven't seen whistleblowers. You know, like one of the famous examples from the Vietnam War of a helicopter pilot who stopped the massacre in a village. You know, you haven't seen anything like that. You haven't seen someone turning their guns against their own side to sort of say, stop, this is wrong. People are still following orders. People are quite happy to drop 2,000-pound bombs in an urban setting. It's not enough. And I think at that point, if you put on the same uniform as these guys, the thing about uniforms and units, you are collectively responsible for the people that wear those same uniforms. And if you're not acting against it, I think you're complicit. There just has to be a thing of like, are you happy to be included and lumped in with these people, or is it better to go to jail? I think it's better to go to jail. I think the other comment that I want to make here is something that a lot of countries have found, right, is when they moved away from conscription and compulsory military service, their militaries got better and more professional. And I understand why Israel still does it, their point of view that they're surrounded on all sides by unfriendly states. The history of the Jewish people, we're never going to be marched into the ovens again, so we all train to fight. 100% completely understand where they're coming from there. But you cannot train people to a really high standard and keep them there and keep them professional and keep them on an even keel and not have like really extreme right-wing views or that sort of thing if they're part-time soldiers. And that has been seen time and time again, the professionalism, the things of like knowing the rules of war and not doing massacres and rapes and murders and all of that sort of thing goes out the window when most of the people that you have there are part-time soldiers and conscripts. And I think that is the position that Israel have put themselves in by putting so many boots on the ground in Gaza on a vengeance mission. And that's how it was put forward to their people. You know, we're getting payback. It wasn't about justice. It was about payback. This is a country that has proven time and time again that they're more than capable of doing absolutely surgical, sneaky shit. They didn't bother doing any of that this time. They just they hit the carpet bomb button. And then they got all of the people of Gaza marching from one end of Gaza to the other and bombing them the entire way and then getting them to go back and then bombing them the entire way. It's fucked. There's no other way to look at it. I would go to jail than be complicit in that.
I mean, I feel like it's one of those things that you never know how you would react until you're confronted with it.
Oh, it's very easy for me to say that sitting here at the bottom of the South Island, 100%. You know, and I do want to acknowledge that, but there has to be a point. Like there were people in Germany that refused to fight. They went to the camps as well. You know, there were people that stopped massacres on both sides that just went, no, this is wrong. And it takes a lot. It takes a spine of absolute titanium to stand up against people that you serve with and go, no. I wonder how many refuseniks there are. Yeah, and how do you sleep with your own actions at night?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's worse, the trauma of jail and or the trauma of having done something that you can't live with. Yep,
100%.
I hope it's a situation that not too many people have to face, but unfortunately, humankind seems to repeat itself.
The wheel turns.
Again and again.
Yeah.
The number of people in the refuseniks refusing to serve, facing jail time. Stairs, nope.
I'd be surprised if that number's out there. I don't think the government would really want that bandied about. And it's strange, right? Because, again, contrasting things, like the Israeli government haven't put the numbers out of how many refuseniks there are. Ukraine has been quite happy to talk about the numbers of deserters that they have had and people that are leaving the country and that sort of thing. They're talking about 10,000 people have refused to serve. I think that just shows you the difference in government.
Yeah, but they're Ukrainians are not. It was a choice, right? Or did they say everyone's got to fight?
No, they are calling up conscripts now. They had a like at the start, people that wanted to defend their country and that sort of thing absolutely signed up as you would. You know, let's defend our country and get this over with. But when you're dragging on to year 3, year 4, casualty lists are getting higher. I think, you know, you get your conscription papers and you go, well, maybe I should just leave the country because I don't want to get fed into the grinder. I think that's a very human reaction. But yeah, I think the fact that Ukraine has always been sort of, you know, they're the aggrieved party there, and they've always been like, our backs are up against the wall. We're going against a massive army and we need the help. And the only thing that will come through from that is to show people how hard up they are. And by going, we've got 10,000 deserters, help us, send us more tanks, please, for the people that we have here. But they are much more open about their situation. Israel does not have that. They don't have that moral authority because of the huge overmatch. You know, the reason that they've been able to flatten so much of Gaza is because their air force is unopposed. Gaza does not have, they have Hamas, they have infantry, they don't have armored vehicles, they don't, you know, it's a war is when two armies are fighting, and that is not what has been happening in Gaza.
No. Yeah, and I think that's been clear pretty much from the beginning. I would argue. All right, shall we get into some super chats?
Yes.
Frosty for $5. How many times do you think Winston will call David the cuckold from Epsom during the election campaign because David wants to privatize assets?
Oh,
love to see it.
Yep. Popcorn time.
Let's see. Bill B for $5, thank you. Gary Stevenson and Navarro Media on YouTube. It's Inequality Tax the Rich. Absolutely. Actually, I'm seeing that a lot recently. It's, Eat the Rich has certainly had a bit of a resurgence, especially with Trump's incoming oligarchy. It's been floating around. Made its
and that should always be the answer. If Labor comes in and goes, we need more schools, more hospitals, we're going to buy ferries, that sort of thing, and then straight away National's going to go, yeah, but how are you going to pay for it? Then you and the Greens turn around and go, well, we've already discussed this. Guess what? If you earn more than $130,000 in a year, you're paying more tax. But what that means is everybody in the country is going to be looked after better, and if everybody in the country is going to be looked after better, you are going to get the benefit of that, because you're going to have better workers, you're going to have cashed up healthy people wanting to buy your products and work for your business and that sort of thing. And the flip side is, if you don't, eventually society flips and we come for you. So there's your choice.
Yeah, it's true. I wonder if Labor, or even, I suppose, all of them, need to put the numbers out there around what the tax policy would mean. Talking about the actual number of people that are currently on incomes lower than 150, 200,000, whatever it is, and how much revenue it would generate if you... I mean, the Greens did do it in their last sort of election tax policy, but I wonder if coming from Labor, painting the picture of how many people of voting age who earn under this amount, if they voted for it, how much they would see more in their pocket, and how much taxing those over a certain amount would put back into the economy.
Interesting idea,
that number. Because I don't know if they've ever done that. It's always just been like, we'll tax this amount, another 50%. They'll put this amount in their money, but actually saying, if we have this many people vote for it, you give us the mandate, and this number of people, could be 2 million New Zealanders, are actually going to benefit so much from this.
Yeah,
and it's going to affect a very small number of people.
rather than just waiting for 3 months before the election and then trying to roll with it and hoping that it has the penetration and people understand it, actually fucking spend over a year talking about it, defending it, showing the workings. You know, I think, yeah, imagine 9 months of like, hey, how much do you earn in a year? Is it less than $130,000? Then you don't need to worry. It's not you, it's them. But do your kids go to school? Do your kids have teeth in their heads? Do you want them to keep them? You know, are you voted for them last time because you were scared of crime, but then cops didn't get a pay rise and they were never able to attract more cops, and in fact they went to Australia. So if we tax these guys more, just these guys, again, not you, then you'll be safer. Did you have to wait for a hospital? Did you have to get shunted around? You know, is your GP fucking crying when you go in for your appointment? You know, we can fix all of that. It's these guys, not you, for a year plus. How effective would that be? I don't know. Nobody's ever done it.
I think even just saying if this number of people, well, yeah, the amount of people it would affect versus the amount of people it wouldn't affect, but the amount that it would put back in our pockets versus the amount, well, not even back in our pockets, but how much it would put into our systems that we use versus how much it will affect them. And like, it's not going to take money from us, it's going to take money from them. The numbers, I think, are really important to actually show the majority of people actually sit in there under 100. I don't know what it is. I assume it's something like 130,000.
Well, IRD did that big study, right? They worked out the effective tax rates of people in different brackets. And again, the Greens have spoken about this, 311 families paying less than 8% tax. You know, they are not doing their share. They should rightly be targeted. But I think when it comes to tax, when, like, even when you're talking to those people and saying, hey, look, we're coming for you, you need to sort of go, look, this is what you're going to get for that tax dollar. Like, people are happy to pay for something when they see the value of it. People will buy a better product if the value is explained to them. What is it going to do better than the other cheaper thing? And I think it's the same with tax. And if you can turn around and go, hey, look, kids are going to be happier and healthier. Surely you can't argue about that. I mean, some people do, because they most unhinged opinions about school lunches, as an example. You know, well, it's a parent's responsibility to feed their kids, and if they don't, well, I don't care what happens at that point. You know, you're always going to have those people. But I think if you show people the value that it has to society as a whole, you know, a happier, healthier, more highly educated population, less homelessness, you know, and we wouldn't have to do police operations like they did in Rotorua, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Not a tax expert, not a political advisor, just an interested party.
I think it would work on me. Like, I know how much I earn. I know what some people in my close circles earn, but I just wonder what the number is. Do you set it high enough that those people who are in the flip-floppy middle, who sort of think more about themselves and perhaps lean towards national thinking, that national things actually benefit them, which they don't, and you go slightly higher into the bracket and maybe aim it for 200,000, for example, which could be two quite high earning incomes? Or do you put it lower and get that little, you know, your actual people that actually need it, right? Or do you go higher and try and get people on board with the idea? Because I think as soon as you're like, oh, well, I earn over 150, or I earn closer to 200,000, and actually I'm struggling in their own minds, you know, I'm struggling. And it is possible. I mean, Auckland is not a cheap city to live in. And it depends on where you are in the country. Like $200,000 would go, you'd be bloody rich if you lived in Invercargill. But in Auckland, it probably doesn't go as far. So I don't know where that number is.
Yeah,
I'm really interested to see what they
everything's
target.
sort of relative. And look, I do want to highlight a comment here. Son on Ascendant. Lol, Chewie, you still look at the lens of someone who has no clue about how the less educated think and if they bother to vote. Look, I want to acknowledge that that's a fair point. I've said on the show very many times that I'm aware of the echo chamber that I'm in and the lens that I look at things through. I'm a political tragic. I'm always surprised when I speak to someone who's not as politically twigged on, and how, say, national and ACT's messaging works. Because I've followed this for as long as I have, and I see the trends and I see through the marketing, or I like to think that I do. But that's me. That isn't Johnny on the spot that got asked whether ferries should have trains. That sort of thing. I think that is a very fair point, and it's something that everybody should keep in mind when they're thinking about this and doing the things that we've been talking about bringing people along. Maybe they're not like-minded. What is their concern? Like Labor in the recent weeks seems to think that, yep, crime and punishment is an evergreen thing. The economy. For what you're talking about, the less educated and whether they bother to vote, do they care about the economy as a whole? My argument towards Labor there is that they probably don't. But if you did talk about job security and fair wages, that might have some more impact than Labor talking about the economy. So, yeah,
the economy, this vague,
this amorphous blob.
That, let's be honest, people who actually care about economics and business and all that sort of stuff are probably the only ones who are really going to hear the economy and go, yes, that thing that benefits me, as opposed to people like, money.
Yeah. And I think that whole thing of like, look, your taxes aren't going to go up. But what we're trying to do is this. Do you have kids? We want their school to be watertight. We want them to be in classes that are small enough to manage. These things for real people. But sometimes people just vote on, I don't like the look of this person's face, or I don't like hippies. There are things that you can't solve. But you've got to bring as many people with you as you can. And yeah, look, I just thought that was a good comment, and I just wanted to acknowledge it.
I'm just going to quickly read this out. Peter Syme, $2. I was told there would be no math.
I was elected to lead, not to read.
Did you want to talk about your trolley problem, the Chewie?
Oh, the trolley problem.
I'd love to know what this is all about. I saw a headline or two, and I wanted to understand what the trolley problem was. In the meantime, here is Kat. Demos.
Where is Kat?
Artemis.
You promised Kat.
Artemis. Hi, buddy.
Oh, there it is. Yawning cat.
Hello.
Okay. So my trolley problem. Well, that's the wrong sized window, isn't it? I saw the story. No, Pat gets enraged. I can feel him getting enraged. Is that better? That's better. Party Māori MP appalled by police's Operation Trolley in Rotorua. So, long story short, police did a 3-day operation called Operation Trolley. They went through Rotorua, gathering up shopping trolleys taken from supermarkets and being used by the homeless. Police arrested 13 people and confiscated 45 shopping trolleys from the homeless and returned them to their businesses at the end of the 3-day operation. Rawiri Waititi is appalled by the police operation, saying the act demonstrates that it is cheaper to criminalise than care about the people of Aotearoa living in poverty, and it is a clear attack on the impoverished whānau in Rotorua. The reality is that our whānau are homeless and struggling, so why are they being arrested? Simply trying to survive on the street. Waititi points out that the trolleys are often a substitute for support, stability, security of belongings for the homeless, things that can be addressed through affordable housing affordable healthcare, affordable cost of living, solutions that lie in the hands of this government. Local retailers have already acknowledged that criminalisation of our homeless whānau won't stop them from taking trolleys. So if the government solutions are at the expense of the homeless and fail to solve the issue for retailers, then are they really fixing problems or causing them in my electorate? Police identified several people using retail store-owned shopping trolleys for personal use without lawful authority. 7 people were arrested for being in possession of items worth less than $500, and another 6 were arrested for historical offences, including theft, assault, arrest warrants, bail breaches, and trespasses. They also issued 19 trespass notices to individuals from the area around the trolley's respective store. So there we go. This is our tough on crime government. Obviously, police have been instructed to do a bit of house cleaning in Rotorua, and they have come in with a bat to beat the symptom and not the cure. Now, workmate of mine and I kind of got into a little bit about this today. Obviously, we work in a shop. Retail crime is a thing. In fact, our shop got broken into 2 weeks ago. So it's pretty fresh in our mind. The property belongs to the supermarket. They have technically stolen something. So surely the police are right here to collect the property and return it to the supermarket. Or, alternatively, was there a better way than a 3-day named police operation involving God knows how many staff to get shopping trolleys back? Doesn't feel good.
A lot of police time and money, isn't it? Spent on
That is a lot of
people,
police
was
time
it?
and money. That is also, I noticed the complete lack of mention of any other social support entities. Like a joint operation would be good. Hey, we've got to give this trolley back to the supermarket, but you need housing. You need help. We can't have you doing this. I point out the fact that Kaingaroa has cancelled a whole bunch of housing projects in the Rotorua area. I point out the fact that Rotorua has always had a housing problem that has just been turbocharged by various national governments. COVID certainly didn't help. Emergency housing, a lot of the motels were used for emergency housing. Obviously, that is gone now as well. And it just seems like we've turbocharged this problem. We've put you in this position. You're trying to get through your life as best you can. You take your whatever meager belongings you have, you put it in a trolley, you move around because you can't stay in one place. And now the cops are coming for you and they're issuing fines and trespasses. So you can't go to this place and you can't pay that fine. So where do you have to go from there? It is just meanness from our government. And it is exactly what we saw coming.
Would you like a little comment?
Oh, it's Pathu. Hello, Pathu.
This is Pathu. Hi, Pat.
Hope the travels are going well. We miss you, buddy. Good stickering. Keep up the vandals.
Good riddance. Go away. Go enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the things that I was talking about with my colleague, right? I actually don't know if I verbalized this, but I don't like seeing homeless people. That doesn't mean that they should be arrested. I want them to have help. I want them to not be begging on the street because they have enough money for food and to run their heaters and the accommodation that they have. You know, that's how you solve it. That's how you solve the fact that Rotorua's supermarkets were missing, you know, a handful of trolleys. Have you ever been to a supermarket that has run out of trolleys, by the way?
No, never. In fact, there's so many that they're in my car park or floating down the street somewhere. or
And look,
being
that
taken
isn't
down a
an
ski
argument.
field.
Just because you've got a lot of something, don't feel free to take it. Here in Dunedin, they always have a big trouble with trolleys because of students, right? They don't have cars, that sort of thing. The supermarkets just have a yearly amnesty, or they put a drone up and they look in people's backyards and then go and knock on the door, going, "Can we take the trolley back, please?" Maybe the answer is the supermarket just gives their old trolleys to the homeless. Is that the problem? Is it the theft that is the problem?
Yeah.
Or is the fact that the visible homelessness is the problem? And we just want to criminalize the poor. It feels like we want to criminalize the poor.
How often do they throw out trolleys? Because that's another point. Surely there's a point where they go, this trolley is no longer viable or useful. It looks dingy. Can they not
I've heard
give them
Yeah,
to
well,
something or
I've
someone?
heard trolleys are really expensive as well. Like I seem to remember like $500 or $600 per trolley being bandied around. But yeah, I mean that's the good thing. What happens to your ruined trolleys? I would hate to see that. Like I can imagine fucking foodstuffs going, we at Foodstuffs care about the homeless. We're giving them our shit wobbly wheeled trolleys as a way of helping. That's not what we want from you. Foodstuffs.
Or even
we
if
want you
it's
to
like, oh
donate
hey, we got
more
these
to food banks.
we got these trolleys back, but they've been around homeless people, so we'll throw them out because we don't actually want them, and God knows where they've been and what's touched them. Like, come on. If that's the case, then just leave them be.
Yeah.
Taking homeless people, I feel, is like kicking the absolute poorest of the poorest in society.
They're finding them and banning them from supermarkets. It's banning them from places where they could buy food. Like there's a homeless person in Dunedin that I see just waiting by the supermarket for the time that they mark down the stuff in the warmer, the end of day food. And that's the thing. You get a trespass because you had a New World trolley. You can't go back to New World. That's one of your food sources gone. That's the only thing that you can, and can you imagine that these guys would maybe they had trolleys from 2 different supermarkets and now they're trespassed from both of them. Tough luck, I guess. It's not solving the problem. It's treating a symptom and moving the problem somewhere else. I mean, that was one of the things. Do you remember when it was Paula Bennett was paying people to move out of Auckland? That was the start of Rotorua's problem.
Yes.
Is that they paid homeless people a grant to go somewhere else. A lot of people went to Rotorua, and it's been a problem ever since. But yeah. This operation doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like an effective use of police time when we're concerned about crime, apparently. This is not the way to solve this problem. They're not going to pay the fines. They're going to keep getting criminalized for being in the wrong part of town or being visible. We're not housing them. That we're not making sure that they're fed. We're not making sure that they're well. That is, I think, when people say that there's no difference, it doesn't matter who's in the government. This is an example of it actually kind of fucking matters. Like putting them in motels is not the solution either. We need to build more houses.
Well, that's interesting because $5,000 moving grant laughable without work. Government offered $5,000 to move the likes of Hamilton, Gisborne, and Whanganui. There are more than 2,000 people on the waiting list for urgent state housing in Auckland. This was May 2016. And then if you just look to the right here, 20th of May 2016, no housing crisis in New Zealand, says Paula Bennett.
Oh, remember good times? Those good times when we had no housing crisis? Paula Bennett, John Key, not a problem.
Speaking in a Checkpoint interview tonight, Ms. Bennett said she had been worried about the situation since becoming social housing minister, but did not believe the situation was getting worse. I certainly wouldn't call it a crisis. I think we've always had people in need. So the other night on TV, I heard the homeless story was second in, and then the 7th story was a man who'd been 30 years living on the streets.
Can I just say what a disgusting person Paula Bennett was and it still is. She's a dreadful, dreadful person. Build more houses. I got a letter I got it. There we go. This is the letter that I got in my letterbox the other day from Kaingaroa, because they were going to. I've spoken about it on the show several times. There's an old holiday park down on the corner, Kaingaroa bought it, and we're going to turn it into social housing. And then it sat empty as homeless people camped in tents in the Dunedin Oval. Somebody died in a tent beside the motorway. It was shocking. People wanted action. People put in official information requests. The mayor thought my idea was a good one. That's why he took it for his own. Anyway, the letter is we're getting in touch with you about the property. Just to let you know, we'll not be progressing with any social housing development on the site, and we'll be selling it. Since purchasing the property with the intention to build social housing on the site, we've put in a significant amount of work to produce multiple options and layout plans. However, over the past years, the cost of building homes has risen dramatically. Naturally, that impacts our budgets, and it's become clear that it's not viable for us to develop the site to provide social housing. So we've retained a real estate agent and we'll be selling it. We still have people sleeping rough in Dunedin. We still have people in transitional houses and motels, which the Associate Housing Minister Tama Potaka has railed against in the run-up to the election as an absolute failed policy. But it put roofs over people's heads. It made sure that they weren't under canvas or nylon in the middle of winter in Dunedin. We've had people die in boarding houses here, slumlords buying old pubs and basically taking money straight from Ministry of Social Development for people to sleep on a maggoty mattress on the ground. Why are we not building more social housing? Why does that not have a value? Maybe if these people had a place to keep their stuff, they wouldn't have to take trolleys, which is apparently a big enough problem to have 46 police officers in a 3-day operation. How many of these housing developments, like the one down the road from me, have been cancelled in Rotorua? How many have been cancelled, chat, in where you live?
Well, Christchurch, on the other hand, is having an absolute boom. I saw the other day that we've had the most number of houses built in the entire country, which I can absolutely attest to. But I can tell you now, not a whole lot of it's been social housing. Because a lot of those projects, people in the neighbourhood have put their foot down and gone, not next to me. I'm a NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Classic.
So it's a shame. Shame to see it, but need more of it. And certainly need less of $700,000 tiny homes, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all they are. Really poorly built. This is my little rant for the day. Really poorly built tiny homes. Same footprint, basically. There's stupid units that's stacked on top of each other. Half the freaking lounge room is a staircase. They don't use any of the tiny home principles that actually make a tiny home work. They're not technically tiny homes, but they are so small and they have the same footprint as a tiny home. They might as well be a tiny home. But they don't use anything like, hey, we put extra storage inside of the stairs. Or here's a Murphy bed. Not that anyone uses that, but like, here's a Murphy bed. Or like, we've done stuff where
you're going to set me off.
Stuff.
I fucking love Murphy beds and you can't get them. It's like if there was a Murphy bed industry in New Zealand, I would have one. We have an awkwardly shaped guest room that a Murphy bed would be perfect for. But anyway, that's not the tangent I went down to. You are exactly right. I'm going to rant about Christchurch housing now. Because of the earthquake, everybody had their fucking 1930 villas with wonky floors and they knocked them down and they would put up on the same size section like 6 to 8 townhouses and people were making
I've watched
bank.
that. Yep, I've watched that happen for the last 10 years, and especially the last 5. I have watched these beautiful old homes that just need a little love or are condemned, either which way they are. Just go, developers, 600,000, demolished, and it has now 4 to 6 2-bedroom homes going for about $700,000 to $800,000 each.
With no grass and just concrete driveways.
No grass. Just concrete. If not, it's fake grass in the backyard, and your backyard is this tiny little square, and you can see your neighbours, and your neighbours can see you sunbathe. So, cool. I guess I'm not living in the city anytime soon. If that's my reality.
And the missed opportunities there, like driving into Christchurch always angers me because I see all of those new roofs and none of them have solar on it. And like
Yes.
they've all
Yes.
been mandated to have like double glazing and that sort of stuff to keep them warm,
Not
but it
solar.
also means that they're too hot in summer because nobody's thought that we also have summer as well. Yeah, but
Yep.
the solution to that is not getting rid of the Resource Management Act. Thank you,
Yeah.
David.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of missed opportunity in Christchurch.
Yeah, I think the other thing that annoys me, because I was watching there was a story about the Reading Cinemas in Wellington. And there's a developer talking about how he's going to do all these cool things with it. And I was like, man, I really like this developer. I never thought I'd say that in my life. But I was like, actually, yeah, this is great. This guy's trying to do things that, you know, it's a public building. It's a business building. He's going to do some cool stuff with it. He's going to make an awesome space for people to actually go to instead of sitting there derelict and needing some earthquake repairs. And I was like, actually, I don't hate developers. What I hate are developers that don't innovate. The ones that go stock standard. We can fit 6 houses on this one section. They all look exactly the same. Maybe there's slight variation each time we do it. Some have wood, some have a brick style, whatever. But if they actually took the time and energy to create spaces and actually innovate in terms of, you know, the solar thing, you know, maybe it's collective solar power that helps each of the homes evenly. Each one gets a battery. Or there's like a water tank for, I don't know, like stuff like that where it's innovative, or like there's a communal kitchen, or there's a communal lounge space, or there's a communal playground. Like actually do something cool with it instead of, and actually make it like a space that's new and innovative instead of live in your tiny home, hate your neighbors, and let them watch you sunbathe through the kitchen window. Like that's what I want to see. Stop taking money from us.
I was trying to find the comment. I saw it on Blue Sky, but someone was going, you know, people are talking about how the housing crisis in Wellington has been solved because there are X amount of rentals advertised at the moment. And he goes, now adjust the slider down. Like, see how many are available under this price? And it's something like 16. And it's like, yeah, there's plenty of expensive rentals. There's plenty of expensive homes. Like if you've got money, you can find a house. That's always been the case. But who is the developer that is going to go out and choose to build social housing when they can expend the same amount of effort and sell each of them for $800,000 or $900,000? Nobody apart from the government, because it doesn't come from a profit-making decision. It comes on, we need people in homes. We don't want people sleeping and dying in the streets. And there are flow-on effects for everybody if we do that. And it can be as small as some guy isn't going to harass you for change as you walk to work every morning. It could be the supermarkets keep all of their trolleys. It could be we don't have to spend money on police doing this. They can go and do something else that has a better benefit down the road. You know, it's understanding the cost of everything. It's also understanding the value of everything. So we're not there yet. We're not there yet, and we need someone. Linking back to what we talked at the start of the show, the message that Christopher Luxon sent out to the opposition: you win an election, you have a mandate to be brave. You have a mandate to completely deploy what you think is the right solution here. You don't need to build consensus. You don't need to put it to a referendum. You just need to do it. Greens, Te Pāti Māori, remind Labour of that wherever you can. They need to build more houses. They need to put Kieran McAnulty and going, this is where you stopped. Keep going. And that's my story.
Nice. I could talk about this for evenings, but it's already 90-minute hour complete, so I suppose we shouldn't keep people forever, should we?
No.
Super chats. Do you want to read through some super chats that we might have missed, Chewie?
Yeah, sure thing. Not a super chat, but a chat nonetheless. Chloe Schwalbrick was powerful in the house today. Chippy wasn't too bad either, particularly the no call and responses. Absolutely, go and search out that footage. I'm sure both parties are going to have clips of that on their social medias. But go to Parliament TV and see the whole thing, because Luxon was bad. As much as these guys were really, really good, Luxon was bad because he's bad at this. Wooming, $5 super chat. I think paraphrasing Seymour is best here. Tell me where in the world has privatization worked? Absolutely. Talk to the English about their water bills or how good the NHS is doing. Mr. Arvid's echoing us all. I never thought I'd back Winnie. I know, man. You stick around long enough, it happens. It's really
it goes
spooky.
in cycles. Little cycles of
It's like,
no
oh
Winnie,
shit,
yes,
the,
Winnie. No
the
Winnie.
worst person
Save
you
the day,
know
Winnie.
is making good points.
Mm-hmm.
Secret of Squirrel Studios. I'd want to see how the question was phrased. Something like, would you be happy to pay more than you do now? Yeah, talking about tax there. Mr. Arvids, when Nikki No Boats announces a plan, we need to hammer home. It's 3 months from when we would have had a world-class ferry if they didn't cancel it. Exactly. She's not going to make when we would have had new. It's going to cost more. It's going to do less.
I want 3D animations with that as well, with like when they see through the boat and they like pull down the walls and they're like, "This is what we could have had," and then it goes back to
the
face,
glorious one.
It's like,
and then do the same thing for whatever Nikki produces, which is some like we've found like we couldn't go back to South Korea, so we've gone to North Korea. And they've built
it's just an old rusty boat that's just
they've glued 2 fishing trawlers together, which won't take, and it's just rusty and there's hooks everywhere. We want to see that animation as well.
Can't wait for it. TV3, that's your goal. Stuff. TV1. Look forward to it.
Rajan with $2 chat there. The issues with the media are why I support BHN. Look, yeah, in the news desert there needs to be news trees, and we're a news tree. A left-leaning news tree. Yep, still. Yeah, we still need the big boys to do their job, so we want them to be around.
Keep going. Yeah.
Citizen Gold here. The left parties need a generational plan. Free education. Educated people tend to vote more left. There's a reason Trump said he loves the uneducated. Yep, absolutely. Brian Turner says Chippy will do the paperwork for election. Peter, do the trolleys have gang patches?
Someone in the comments also followed it up with, yes, it's New World Pack and Save. Course.
When I see people with facial tattoos that say Pack and Save across their eye line, then I'll panic. Mr. Arvids again, you fix crime by increasing social inequities. By increasing? Fixing? You fix crime by fixing inequities, I would imagine. Maybe that's
increasing the gap of
I get he's paid another $2 to fix this mistyping.
Fixing social inequities. Thank you.
Yeah, Mama Mac, very true here. Most of us are one paycheck away from being homeless, and I think that's something that everyone needs to, if you can't work, if your business goes belly up, how long before you lose your house? How long before you're going to food banks and that sort of thing? And I think honestly, if you sit down and you look at that, it's fucking terrifying. Like truly frightening.
Yeah.
The Falconer NZ $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Having homeless people makes your council look bad, so they want to remove them instead of fixing the problem. In fairness to councils, yes, I agree that's true. But remember, when councils want to stick their hands up and go, hey, look, maybe we should do social housing with our rates, you have someone like Christopher Bishop or Simeon Brown come in and go, council should just focus on water. Council should focus on this. They shouldn't be spending their rates money on social housing. The answer to that is, well, motherfucker, someone has to, and you're not. You know, I agree. I don't think councils should be the ones to provide social housing. I think the government should be doing that, but they're not. Councils have been doing social housing for decades. And disarray.
Wow.
Great topics tonight. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks.
Love
bro.
having you here, man. Like, honestly, I've been talking about your
I feel like I think
and
it's
how
just like
how mean we all were.
some of it
I'm
was
glad you're still
justified,
here.
bro. Some of it
Some
was
of it.
justified.
Some of
Some
it. It was a
just
bit of a
like
pile
we're
on, let's be
slowly
honest.
showing you move.
But
Just,
now he's one of
come
us.
for the ride. Come for the ride.
But yes, very glad you're still here, but glad you're enjoying it.
All right, it's been fun, but I think we both need to hit the sack. So
it's Nano's time.
it's nice time. So shall we play the beats? And hopefully with some sound. And if it still sounds like it's underwater, I'm sorry, but let me know if it does.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting bees from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All heavily, neither this way or that, and will be analyzed by what Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. Hope you had a good time. Hope we entertained you with our 3 stories that we managed to get through, none of which were on the list, but hey, that's the way it is sometimes. Any last thoughts there, Chewie?
Asset sales bad. Gotta fight it. Gotta fight everything.
Agreed. We'll be back here tomorrow at 9 PM, same place, and enjoy your evening, and say goodbye to my kitty cat. Bye, guys!
Bye, kitty cat. Cheers, man.
Bye.